down, you should join in.
Might as well. I mean, it might help. You never know. We're getting ready for game number 1 here. T1 will have side selection. They pick the blue side. And I think the draft is, as always, going to have a big effect on the way these games play out. We've seen a lot of Corki losing, and that has been the main go-to for Faker. We've seen Tristana banned away and said, hey, go ahead, play Corki if you'd like. Also, Ziggs is just a tyrant in the current meta.
This is really telling that they are looking towards that initial prioritization of Ziggs. I still don't think Gumayusi is amongst our best Ziggs. I think Deft, interestingly enough, a good Ziggs with build choices that are very questionable. But I have, fortunately, 2 Ziggs experts. If the champ doesn't get banned away, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if KT end up banning it here in the final rotation. Would leave Azir open, and both mid laners obviously absolutely love the champion. I think the last time we saw Faker on, he didn't actually look that good. I remember a couple of shuffles that didn't go the way that you really wanted to. So Ziggs, Azir, both open here, and my guess is that T1 is going to prioritize picking up that Ziggs, and it is the case.
And this is a danger, because if KT decide to prioritize the Azir here, they're leaving the Tristana open. And Tristana Ziggs, we've seen that combo be so good, so powerful. They opt not even to lean into it, instead securing the Lilia. It is something we've seen banned quite heavily against Oner. The last of the AP jungles to really be high priority. And the MF, not the worst pick into the Ziggs. Ashe is definitely a lot worse, she struggles so much, but not a huge fan. They need to make sure they get some setup. The sleepy bullet time combo is powerful, but you can't always pull it off.
And I'm wondering, there are 2 options here. Either you go for the blind Tristana, or you go for the Azir. Azir does mean that you go very heavy on the AP. And again, normally Faker on Azir, Classic had probably the most iconic play of the last World Championship, but I don't think in recent games that he's actually been able to make it look as good as he did back then. And both Yone and Tristana are now available for BDD, both of which I think go really well together with the Lilia and have an incredible amount of power and play well into the Azir.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this Azir pickup here, especially if they're going to lock in the Skarner. You're so heavy in terms of AP. You really don't have the 80 damage, especially against picks like a Yone, a Lilia, and MF. They're not tanky picks, but the atomization makes them feel bulkier. The Bloodthirster for MF, you know, we've seen a lot of Bruiser, Yone, Lilia with the healing, and often go on things like the Andri. So if they start to atomize some MR, T1 are really going to struggle. And the thing is, Zeus can obviously pick a champion with AD, but he's not going to have counter pick. So some major concerns. We do see the Yone coming out for BDD. He's been very proficient on this pick.
Looked incredible yesterday. Goes really well together with the Lilia, provides additional setup, and it works both ways, right? Yone can set up for Lilia, Lilia can set up for Yone, and then you have the MF ult on top of all of that. Definitely something that T1 is going to have to find a way to pilot, as we do see. And I actually really like this. As you point out, Zeus is going to look to try and get a carry here, because otherwise I think you are really lacking damage towards the top side of the map. You end up locking something like a Cassante, Skarner, Azir. Really isn't going to be the early pressure that I think you're looking for. And you want to play towards those grubs with the Ziggs already there for you. And what KT can do is just, if it doesn't get banned, Barrel will just R4 Leona here. And then they get the counter pick for Perfect. This though makes me wonder if they're looking to just blind a Renekton and give the counter pick over the Barrel to try and punish the bot lane.
Yeah, they could also just end up taking like the Rel for Barrel, although I do think the Leona is so good with the Ziggs and denies
also good into
MF. Yeah, so I think picking the Leona on 4 makes a lot more sense to me. And even, you know, as much as Renekton is an AD pick, not really doing enough damage to be a massive threat, especially the bot side of the map would be so lacking in that area. But actually, I'm not a huge fan of this. They've definitely lent on this in their series against BNK Ferex. They put Perfect on Cassante a lot. But you have red side, you're into Zeus. I think giving him counter pick is dangerous.
We'll have to see what Barrel's gonna bring out, right? Because that's the sacrifice that Perfect is making here. Not giving him counter pick, going for something that in lane can get bullied. And this shouldn't come as a surprise.
Not at all.
It shores up the topside weakness. Incredibly strong into tanks. I'm wondering if KT want to look for a lane swap, but trying the lane swap into the Ziggs team can feel quite rough.
Yeah, I think this might be the thought process, is if the Leona's picked, then Barrel could go the Poppy or the even the Alistair works well into Leona. So T1 toying with the idea of not committing to Leona here. I think this is a mistake, even though the Leona obviously does struggle a bit into the Poppy. You know, you now limit yourself to that ability to cancel that MF ult, which it's so powerful for Leona to have. So some decisions I don't necessarily agree with here, although, as you said, the Vayne, no real surprise, and does provide that damage threat.
This is Beryl. He could do something crazy. It's just going to be Senna, which, you know, coming into 14-16, we were like, this is one of the big picks on the patch, and we haven't seen too much of it, but it comes in here, and, you know, honestly, against the poke of the Ziggs, you get a lot of healing, but I'm not sure about this, what this is going to look like.
The sustain on this pick is absurd, and it really makes it hard for Ziggs to land effective poke. The fact that Keria blinded the Poppy was clearly like, okay, we expect you to pick an engaged champ, we expect you to be Alistair or Leona, we're going to pre-pick the Poppy, and they lean into this, and Poppy is not going to have too much pressure into the center. You need to have Flash. Flash, slam them into a wall, that's only the real viable threat you have in it, otherwise you're just getting outranged. The lane is going to be rough, they might have to swap to avoid this, the level 1's going to be brutal.
What's big as well is that they pick it as an actual Enchanter support, right? There's plenty of damage between the MF, the Yone, and the Lilia, which is also avoiding some of the weaknesses that we saw of this Senna back when Hanwha Life picked it all the way back when they got like, what, a 5k gold lead, and then they were playing into Nasus with only a, what was the Azir for?
Yeah.
It was rough. I think this time around there is actually enough firepower. On the flip side, I do think the Vayne pick actually makes a big difference. And it remains to be seen whether this Senna counter pick was worth giving over counter pick to Zeus, who's a player that loves trying to get the most out of a laning phase.
Either way, this is very exciting. I feel like this draft already taking some twists and turns that we did not necessarily expect. Both teams having a very specific idea in mind coming into this first game of the best of 5. Let's do it, game 1.
소환사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
And here we go. Already the slow is happening here to Zeus, and we got Keria and Oner and
Level
Kuma
1
all coming in. There's the slam into the wall. Perfect's in a bit of trouble, and he doesn't have flash. He's gonna go down to the 6 already. T1. Not sure if that was a bait or what, but Perfect absolutely overchases and gets punished. And speaking of which, we're just gonna face check and die. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing, but Guma has 2 kills now.
Well, I feel like every single point we made about the draft kind of out the window now. You know, there's concerns about the bot lane for the Ziggs. This back, gonna be able to get the tier, the fairy in the bottle, whatever it's called, not as much of an issue.
That's
but
what it's called.
glowing mode.
Oh, glowing mode. But the fact that you start with a tier already, the fact you have a 2-0 Ziggs, minute 1, this couldn't have backfired more for KT.
And now, as you guys mentioned in the draft, they're probably going to go for lane swap, and they're leaving Ziggs in the bot lane, who has 2 kills, and is going to be hitting a couple of turret plates very early on in this game.
Yeah, so Perfect's death at least felt like it could be the result of, like, obviously him overextending, but also a bit of a miscommunication with them wanting to try and chase and collapse, because we saw the rest of KT coming in, but him just overstepping. Deft, though...
just took a tower hit as well.
Yeah, so Deft trying to cancel the back really didn't... Against the Poppy in particular, like, you just can't really afford to do that.
You know, I'd understand more if he had his Make It Rain.
Yeah.
But he didn't.
No.
You could really just snipe the recoil cancel from a distance.
And it would have been good if that was the case, because then you can, you know, generate a large lead lane. Even though Perfect is going down, it might be worth it. Not the case this time around. We do have Perfect now TPing towards the bottom half of the map, and isn't really at a threat of a dive. Also do know both junglers really just going for pretty standard clears, both starting on the bot, and now moving towards the top side of the map.
I like that synergy, you know, Def took a tower hit, so Beryl's like, I'll do it too.
He did walk in there and just straight up walk into the tower. Obviously just checking to see if Zeus is still there. But we do have a sneaky Poppy in the brush, and Deft is not exactly healthy here. Oner as well up there, but they're going to back away. They're going to play it safe, and Zeus, that does mean that he gets a lot of this farm under the turret.
It's just funny we get like a different flavor of it's still an 80 carry support 2v2, and it's just Ziggs laning against the K'Sante. The K'Sante who still has 0 CS, by the way.
Yeah, I wonder what happened there. Must have just had a really tough time because he did actually TP to the wave.
Yeah, I think he didn't last to the minions, if you're wondering.
Folks, very helpful.
Yes, high-level analysis here. Thank you, guys. Not hitting the minions generally means that you're not going to get the gold from them and get a big fat 0 on the scoreboard.
This is something where, like, the death initially, this is a player that is in his first really, obviously he did play a little bit last year, but was still eligible for Rookie of the Split. Is still sitting on 0. Like,
how is he still on 0?
Well, that's my
moment.
So that's what I was going towards, right? Like, I actually think that getting an early death like that for a player that is in his first qualifier, extremely high pressure situation, might lead to a bit of tilt. And the fact that out of the, I imagine, what, like 10, 12 CS that he could have gotten, he's only gone 4. That's not good.
Yeah, nice little angle here onto the Senna. Barrel almost definitely going to have to flash. Doesn't even bother. He's just going to take the death and die. Down he goes. That's a kill over to Zeus now. If you were wondering how the carries were doing on the side of T1, they're pretty excellent right now.
The threat with this trio of the Vayne, Skarner, Poppy, if one of them hits you into a wall, you're going to be there until you're dead. Like the Condemn and the Wall Slam, I think Beryl made the right choice not flashing there because you're still just going to die if you do. So saves us something for later, but it kind of shows these double-ranged bot lanes so much more vulnerable to ganks in comparison.
Now the situation here for KT right from the get-go, obviously feeling quite rough. Sizable gold lead here for T1 at 5 minutes, right? 1.3, 1.4k. And the gold also going to basically the ideal people, which is the solo lane Vayne and the Ziggs, who now is a lost chapter at 5 minutes. Dev did pick up a call, so at the very least, he'll be able to generate some additional gold. Pioshik has also been able to out-farm as expected, but Oner did get a successful gank off already. And KT, they're going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting in team fights if we want to have this be a competitive game. Because right now, looking like a bit of a blowout here early on. Oner will get spotted, but still, we're going to have to try and keep his distance.
It's also just an absurd point of the game. Like, we're pre-6 minutes, and Guma already has Lost Chapter tier. These are like the items where when you're playing Ziggs, you basically have infinite mana after this point. Still has a biscuit in inventory, still about to get a second biscuit as well. So he can just push endlessly. And Deft, in comparison, you know, later on the MF gets Bloodthirster and you can have more presence, you know, healing up with any poke. That's not going to happen for a long time now. So we see Pioshik able to get one of the grubs. But T1 moving into challenge, you can see the wave pushed up top, and they will contest those.
I also think that Perfect being behind is actually a really big deal as the CSing struggles continue. Because if you look at the KT composition, outside of Perfect being there as a front line, like the rest of the team are pretty fragile, right? You're looking at maybe Liliac can set up a play like here.
Oh, he's going to flash, or rather satchel out of the way early, and then he will flash. Really respecting the potential setup of the Lilia. Pioshik trying to flash in to make that happen. Here comes the Ghost out of Perfect, trying to punish the Vayne. Not always an easy thing to do, as Zeus is being chased down the lane, and Perfect doesn't quite have the range to do it, and now you're being run down as he gets that third bolt into Perfect. But a gank out of level 4 Senna. Not always the most interesting. Here comes Keria, but he's just going to walk by.
Yeah, just some ability there for Zeus to get away from that one. And the thing is, this Senna not doing too much damage at this point, really. And obviously, if you're going to enchant to build, never really will. So Zeus does lose sums, and it is a bit of a trade down because Ghost is shot a cooldown, but Zeus still in a pretty fine spot. I think Perfect just happy he gets to hit minions for a little bit. But the wave's actually in a bad spot. It's frozen here, so this could end up being a rough spot for Perfect overall. You can see he was walking towards bot lane and kind of changing his mind here.
You see Beryl very desperately trying to get it. It should be able, gets it into the turret now, so not going to be the end of the world though. Nope, Zeus is able to pull it. And obviously, like, Beryl has to respect they know that there's plenty of people towards the bot side of the map.
But then who goes bot? You know, I guess they're going to reset and send Def there. He does have TP.
Yeah, he does have, yeah, can make his way over quickly.
It feels like they have to do so much work just to try and accommodate the rough spot this Cassante has ended up in. I mean, it was always going to be a bad lane matchup into the vein, but yeah, a lot of switching around just to try and minimize the deficit, but it's still, I mean, look at the CS gap in the top lane. There's a CS gap opened up in the bot lane. On top of the fact Guma has those 2 kills. Leads all over the place right now, and you can see the XP lead as well. Guma the highest level in the game by a hefty margin.
Beckons the question, was it worth it to blind this Cassante into Zeus? And thus far the answer is very obviously no. We'll have to see how much value Beryl is going to get out of the Senna as the game progresses. Obviously, once Echoes is finished, he's going to feel a lot stronger. And the heals are still going to be, hopefully, a good amount of utility for KT when we get to mid-game. But if you're getting into mid-game already being like 3k gold behind and you don't have any item finishes, then that's not really going to feel that great regardless.
Yeah, also a big thing with the Senna is if your team is sort of even. Oh.
Yeah, Barrel's in a rough spot here. He does have his flash. He will flash that one. Here comes BDD, who's just going to be swept away. And he is super low barrel as well. A big bop coming over the top, but I think they have the chase potential. One more auto would do it. Faker will get the kill. They have gone very deep for this, though. As Keria thinking about helping out. He's not level 6 yet. As now Pioshik not going to hit anything.
Doesn't have flash.
And there's a disengage cone right here, so KT just have to back away. It's just a kill that goes over to T1 basically for free.
Wondering if maybe Perfect could have gotten the drag on Oner there across the wall. Could have been the difference maker, right? If you get that Skarner underneath the turret, at least you trade back 1-for-1, but that's going to be the Dragon going over here to T1, and yet another successful pick in KT. Quickly crumbling here under the pressure.
Yeah, this is just everything going wrong really in this game. It's 10 minutes into the 3,000 goal lead already. And you're into plenty of picks that scale exceptionally well. On top of that, you know, the Senna, we talk about the value this pick can have, but if you're behind, people will just die. Like, you won't get a chance to sustain them up when a Ziggs ult and Q is just deleting them from the map, especially a Senna who ends up being so squishy when behind.
So funny now to watch, you know, even not on a first item, Zeus is just like able to trade with Beryl. You know, Def can't even really join in it. He's just trying to push the wave in. It just feels like they're trying to put out fires everywhere. And, you know, if you want to, you know, dig into the beams, you can say, hey, KT are really trying to lower the expectations for themselves.
They're doing a great job of that.
In this series, it basically looks unwinnable from here. It's not unwinnable, obviously, but it does make you feel like, hey, there was so much hype, so much potential for KT to really, you know, do a number to T1 and maybe even take their world spot away. But right now, what we're seeing is T1 are just kind of bopping them over the head. And T1 are just playing a pretty basic playing game. It feels like KT are not really meeting the expectations right now.
Yeah. And here, even with Beryl not getting slammed into the wall, BD doesn't actually get a big ultimate off, immediately gets knocked back, and Keria has Pry on the play. Add to that the fact that you have the Ziggs ultimate to come in as support, and then the fact that they can't really isolate Oner here. KT don't end up getting anything.
It just feels like there's very little threat. You know,
Yeah.
T1 managed to disengage from the situation, and other than getting dragged over the wall, they just kind of get a walkout. Definitely looking a bit difficult, and now Def chunked out here. Wow. Again, doesn't have the blood.
Yeah, there's Keria, and he just swings by, hits him once, drops the ignite, and gets the kill. And Def doesn't get to play the game at all.
He didn't even hit the E on Def.
Nope.
It was just a, what was it, a drive-by ult that killed him?
I think maybe Ignite Buckler.
I don't think the ult even hit him.
I think it was Ignite Buckler.
I think he just autoed once and ignited. And that was it. I mean, Def doesn't exist right now. Zeus, does he exist is the question. He's still got a flash. Meanwhile, there's a fight going on between the supports, and Keria's winning that one big time. Can he actually get the kill? Yes, he can. And now he's on the run here. Might be in a bit of trouble, especially with the TP coming in. But Perfect basically just TPs for nothing, and they eventually kill Keria while Faker's solo farming bot.
You know, in terms of the fact that Keria got gold, no assist, and BDD got the kill in return, in terms of gold distributed, that's worth for KT. For the mental edge, Keria definitely gets it from that one. Solo killing Beryl there. I want to see how that came about, but this is that first moment where he Hex flashes over the wall. Def super low.
Yeah, just literally.
I think it was the Q caught him, Q and Ignite there.
Yeah.
Over the edge of it. And then here, just half HP. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
It's very straightforward. Gets the catch. Also, I do want to note, as we see there, the TP coming in here from Perfect, like an answer to the TP that came through from Guma. But it does mean that Faker just gets to be completely unmatched in bot side, just shoving that wave. More CS is going to get missing, and it even further builds upon this gold lead that is being found, as Keria is just running this map on the Poppy.
Yeah, also Guma has been extremely accurate with his Qs. Can sometimes be difficult with the weird balancing mechanics and stuff, but he's basically just plopping it on the heads of every enemy that's in his range, and nobody gets to play the game against his fed Ziggs. Meanwhile, Barrel, well, he's in the game, but he's not really, as he's dead again for the 4th time at 13 minutes. And there's the Satchel coming in, maybe asleep here. There's the flash as well. He does have teammates nearby, but not quite close enough, as Guma finally does get punished. And now Oner will go down as well, and finally KT gets something on the map.
Great bait by Barrel there.
Yeah! Classic Barrel!
A lot of resources burned by T1. A bit of an overcommit. More happening.
Yeah, Keria's just kind of getting in there, and this is actually a bait because the TP's here, Faker's here as well. Dev is just dead, and now Faker gets the scoop here on a Pyosik. Nice Senna ult to help out, and BDD is desperate, but the Condemn comes in, and the knock into the wall is exactly what you were talking about. You're just up against the wall forever, and now the Vayne is going way too deep for this, actually, and will get punished. BDD will survive.
The healing from Barrel coming in a little bit clutch there. A very scrappy back and forth. You can see the plates though. Guma missing out on the 15 plate dream, but that is so much gold in favor of T1. So even with this play, a bit of a comeback from KT, they are still so far behind. And yeah, so they use a lot onto the center. And then Guma ends up stepping here. And the critical difference is Pyosik lands the passive, so the sleep comes in. The flash doesn't end up meaning anything.
And then here, Oner tries to extend the play, doesn't actually get the knock into the wall, and even if he did, wouldn't have really made a difference. As a result, KT think that they have an opportunity, have vision as well, so know that Keria's coming in, but it's this TP, crucially, that ends up being a big problem. Def just ends up going down, even with the Yone trying to make his way back in. And then this is so painful for BDD. It's what you were talking about earlier. Condemned into stun, and the fact that he's playing into Poppy as well, which even limits the dashes even more. And the healing there means that BDD doesn't die. Is that enough?
Here we go again.
I don't think so.
Oner gonna miss his ult. Also went for the Zeeks here. Pretty common on Skarner, I guess. One of the only junglers as a tank in the jungle to actually still get that item. Faker just gonna take out a turret, and this is the 2nd Drake of the game. It's a Cloud Drake, and already 2 going in the hands of T1, making it a Mountain Soul on the cards for them.
Yeah, and I think, you know, yesterday our first game between KT and BNK4X was very slow. Took a long time for things to get rolling. This is kind of what I expected from these two teams. It is still a massive advantage for T1, but it's definitely been a lot scrappier recently. But now, T1 have already taken all of the outer towers. It's 16 minutes, and it's so easy for them just to look and threaten these tier 2s. That's 1 down already, and they can just repeat this play on the other side of the map, and I don't think KT really have a response right now.
Yeah, if you'd be looking for code, you'd be saying it's a calibration game. I think, unfortunately, though, again, come out of draft. Question was going to be, is this Cassante working out? And it's not. I think part of that is also Perfect having obviously a really rough game after the level 1, which didn't help. But it also feels like, particularly against T1, one of the biggest strengths that they have found is if Zeus gets a counterpick and gets to take over the game. And this is coming from, I think Zeus really having a very up and down year. A lot of moments where he just is able to finally, but then overextends in the side lane. But if he's this far ahead, as we have seen, like even trying to collapse on him, at worst, he generally will trade 1 for 1.
But I just don't understand why, when you're on red side, that is a situation
so you get Senna.
I just don't think it's weird. I don't think,
I don't think it's 0-4.
You know from the last series that this was the matchup that you had an issue in. We saw in the BNK4X KT series, they were doing these long swaps to try and protect Perfect. And now they blind pick on red side for him. It just doesn't make sense. It feels like it's completely the wrong approach. So, you're trying to insulate your top laner, because this has been brutal. And I know obviously the level 1 impacted as well, but
Yeah, it's not.
Don't let Zeus pick Vayne.
It's not just per effect. I think Deft and Barrel have also definitely struggled, but I do think a lot of the effects follow as
very nice
BDD.
knock up here. BDD, man, this is one way you can still win the game. As the denial from Keria was insane. It's still going to be a kill, but now they're in a bit of trouble as so many low health bars. We got the TP coming in. Nice stasis from the side of Pyosing as Barrel is burning down a bit, but nobody has actually died yet on the side of KT, and they have some healing as well. So for now, it's just Zeus that has gone down.
And BDD is trying his best, okay? Someone is he's trying to hold everything together here. By itself, not enough, but we'll get the flash, we'll get the kill onto Zeus, and we're slowly starting to see the Senna value come through. If they can just stay alive and pick off members one by one, it's still a 6k gold deficit. This alone is not going to be enough, but it's got to be moments like this that maybe bring KT back into the game.
This was such a good play from BDD, but I think the deficit in terms of gold is why this was so difficult. That intro from Keria was beautiful, and they managed to get away without losing anyone, but it's so close, and I think a lot of KT members played it well, but the gold deficit is making it so difficult, and Guma, you know, one thing with Ziggs is if you're missing your skill shots, you're obviously not really doing any damage. He's not missing, and he is doing ridiculous damage right now. He is so fed, working towards a Rabadon's third. If any CC lands, there's a fair amount of CC from T1, an ult will be enough to just execute someone.
Yeah, he's going full damage builds as well. He knows that the only real tank is Cassante, who's also building armor for the main. As, yeah, this is what I was talking about. You know, he presses one button, and Barrel basically dies. Not a kill, but it is going to be Barrel out of the game for now. He will have to back away. Faker still pushing the top lane. And yeah, T1 just basically trying to do their best to utilize the Ziggs to continue to try to push in as Pyosik just catches that one very nicely. And just trying to siege as much as possible. Here comes KT though.
Oh, Guma just uses W aggressively.
Cassante.
Yeah, here comes the Cassante. It is 4v5 for now. TP available though, as Oner just trying to get away. It doesn't look like they want to fight this one just yet. They have the Azir turret, and Perfect is walking over every single mine that he can find. And yeah, they're just able to disengage. KT doesn't have the best engage at the end of the day anyway.
Also, Perfect, he's got the Frozen Fist and now going towards more armor, but Vayne does true damage and Faker and Guma do magic damage, so he's not very tanky. He wouldn't be tanky anyway because he's so behind, but he's definitely not tanky going towards more armor here. He's getting shredded, and you know, typically we see the build, the Luden's Horizon focus, better against squishies, but when there's no MR, you're just going to shred everything.
Yeah, now there's 5 squishies.
Yeah, I wouldn't have really minded going for like the Koenig Frozen Heart. I know those items are not nearly as strong as they were way back, but like specifically Frozen Heart I get because it does actually reduce the damage right with the aura, lowering the attack speed. But Koenig into the Azir and the Ziggs I think would have felt really good. I imagine didn't feel like he could because of the 1v1 matchup.
It's also funny, he went the Frozen Fist for the Vayne, you assume, but he spent most of the laning phase actually against the Ziggs.
Yeah.
And you see KT trying to posture here for a Drake, but the satchel is just so good. Man, our Ziggs players, they're getting a lot of practice on the Ziggs, and everybody is really upping their game nowadays as Guma is just really not missing anything.
It really is night and day as well when you compare Guma's individual Ziggs performance to when we were at the start of the playoffs, right? And given how important of a pick it is on the patch, that shouldn't come as a surprise, but it definitely is a really big reason of why this first draft feels a little lopsided, and I do think that as a game number 1, KT took some gambles, right? Perfect being blinding the Cassante, giving over the Ziggs. I hope a lot of those decisions will be changed in the next game, because this one does feel like it's kind of over. If in game 1 in the best of 5 you do have a little bit of leeway, but if KT don't make a huge adaptation in the next one, I don't think...
Guma wants his cap.
Yep.
Yeah. He's running around the map. He's like, give me your jungle now.
Oh, he's
look at the money.
Blue.
Yep, 40. Okay. He's going to get the blue buff and back and get his death cap. That's 3 items at 22 minutes for the Ziggs against 0 MR. None.
There's two pairs of mid treads, actually.
Oh, sorry.
Senna,
I was incorrect. Yes.
Senna won't immediately die, right?
Surely
guys?
Not. You can heal through the poke, right? If you're alive.
I don't think it's 100 to 0 yet, but it's not far away. Like, just the ult.
This is not okay.
I think if Keria slams Beryl into a wall and then it's just Guma ult, I think Beryl might die to that. But I hope we get to see it for science, obviously.
Yeah, by the way, they still had the Rift Herald, so they just saved it until 23 minutes, and now they're using it to push down the mid wave and the mid lane and try to really get into those turrets. Faker going 1v1 against BDD, who eventually does have to rebind, but the rest of T1 are just pushing mid, and this is without Baron, and one Q does Beryl's whole health bar split amongst, you know, 3 different guys. Yeah.
1 Q took like 30-40%. You see as well, the only point of strength that I think KT have is Lilia, who without Flash isn't nearly as much of a threat, and BDD. So if BDD isn't there, the rest of T1 can legitimately just walk up and freely poke and not be threatened whatsoever.
Yeah, I think we're obviously talking as if this game's a done deal, but it would have to be unprecedented levels.
I think Ox is safe to say.
Of mistakes from T1 to lose here against KT. Like, they would really have to fumble this to a hilarious degree to lose from here, which, you know, kind of puts odds really low on KT.
It's never impossible, but it really shouldn't happen. Particularly because I think T1, when ahead, have generally been very dependable. It's more so when they're even or behind that we see them make decisions that make you go, probably shouldn't have done that.
By the way,
though, yep,
yeah.
Started up, why not?
And I mean, their Baron damage is just disgusting. With the Vayne, with the Azir, with the Ziggs, who isn't even hitting it. He's just zoning Pyosik away. That is 2 abilities, I guess 3. Just going to be thrown in perfect like, I'm here, guys, I'm ready to help. And the Baron's gone. T1 take it down 24 minutes in. There's nothing that KT can do.
You know, we've seen so many games where Ziggs has been strong, effective, maybe even a little bit oppressive, but we haven't really had a game where he's been this fed, this snowballed, this ahead. It's very ridiculous.
It's pretty rare in pro.
Yeah,
to get this level.
Yeah, generally we don't see him get a double kill level 1. I feel like that might have been a big factor in this.
Yeah, I don't think that was in T1's game plan, but they adapted pretty well.
They pivoted really well. It's actually very impressive. Well, TP behind. Hail Mary.
BDD he's still trying his best, but now he doesn't have a health bar. And with Baron buff, this is just even more oppressive because your siege is already fantastic with just the one guy. And, you know, you have some healing, you have some ability to, yeah. But not really. Well, he's got 10,000 gold behind.
He's got ult again. With the slow hit from, I think if the slow hits from Oner on Beryl, they can just ult.
Yeah, force a flash.
It's so funny because Beryl is actually healing, but it just doesn't matter. Even the Luden's proc!
Oh no, Beryl! Oh no! And the ult, you know, optimistic, but they do get the heal. And I guess that's something. They already got 2 inhibitors, rather, and they're going for number 3. And here we go, the Impale comes in, gets double flash away from them, just burning, just eating the summoners as they're trying to get on top of Zeus, and they might just do that, but who cares about Zeus when Guma is this fed on the Ziggs? And you got the 1 carry, but you didn't get the other 2. BDD desperate to try to take something down, but guys, this game is over, and it is out as T1 are looking to take down game number 1 in flying fashion here in this finals of the regional qualifiers. As one last-ditch attempt from Def, but this one is donezo. 26.5 minutes, and game 1 goes to T1.